Well, Mr. President, here we are. After days and weeks and months of hearings and conversation and gnashing of teeth and all kinds of angst and whatever, here we are. A budget that's been presented to us that is, at best, a trick on Pennsylvania's people. And I say that because, very simply, Mr. President, we are sitting right now, again, one more day, with new reports in of new receipts, with an additional $66 million that have been returned to the state's coffers, just on yesterday's receipts, which were counted up and reported this morning. That puts us alarmingly, amazingly, incredibly close to a $700 million budget surplus in this current year. Some folks have made up different names for that money. Some folks have called it different things, but the truth of the matter is that on this day, June 28th, at 5:02 p.m., we're sitting on an extra, what will probably be, by June 30th, an extra $700 million in budget surplus. And this budget, House Bill 1485, wants to report to the people, this budget, that there's not enough dollars to deal with the issues that most Pennsylvanians are concerned about. So the context is important, Mr. President. The fact is that there are dollars to be spent and to be invested in the issues that Pennsylvania's people care most about. The process is also important, Mr. President, because after we had hours of public hearings, weeks of conversation all across the Commonwealth, months of conversation all across the Commonwealth, Mr. President, as we have gone down that process and going from northeast Pennsylvania to southeast Pennsylvania, here in central Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania, through the counties, through lots of public conversations, lots of town meetings, conference calls with 15, 20, 100, 200 people on a call to inform them of what was going on. After we had all of the dialogue, all the letters and the thousands of emails that we've received, and I would imagine that probably no senator in this hall, Democrat or Republican, received more than 10 emails in support of this budget, except if it came from the front office. After having lots of conversation, lots of dialogue with lots of people, in this last 3 weeks to 4 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks or so, what has happened is that the majority has circled the wagons. They have circled the wagons in the House and the Senate and the governor's office and met amongst themselves and crafted a budget that, again, does not put Pennsylvania's people first. And in many respects, Mr. President, it puts the people of Pennsylvania last. It puts the school children last, Mr. President. Some will tout an increase of funding for basic education, but the fact is that you compare these dollars to this bill to what the governor introduced is in many respects a false comparison. The comparison should be made, Mr. President, between what's in House Bill 1485, what was spent last year, and what the available dollars are now. The truth of the matter is, Mr. President, there's a $900 million cut in basic education funding. As a result of that funding, Mr. President, school teachers and teaching personnel, janitors, bus drivers, all kinds of individuals across the Commonwealth will lose their job. Thousands have already received layoff notices, and many more to come. That's a reality with this budget that's being presented to us today, House Bill 1485, a document that was agreed to with the majority here in this body, the majority in the House, and the governor's office. There were no four-party negotiations to this process, Mr. President. There was no time when all four caucuses sat down and had across-the-table conversation about what we would like to do for the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. No time ever was there that kind of conversation. This budget is being crafted by the majority. This is their budget. Unfortunately, they own the budget, but the impact of the budget will be on the people, all 12 million people of this Commonwealth. And that's a shame, because we don't make the appropriate investments in the education of our children when we have the money to do so. So school districts across the Commonwealth, you'll see it, Mr. President, on July 1, taken into effect, when this budget goes into effect, school districts across the Commonwealth will increase their property taxes. The governor says he doesn't want an increase in taxes. He signed a pledge with Grover to not have an increase in taxes. Well, you know what? There's going to be an increase in taxes, and that increase in taxes does not have to happen because we're sitting on a $700 million budget surplus. But when you craft a budget that only contains the issues of the majority and does not focus on having a four-party negotiation, a four-caucus negotiation, when you do it all amongst yourself, this is what you get. This is what you get, Mr. President. This is their budget. They crafted it. They drew it up. They drew it up with the pressures of Grover standing over them, not wanting to have any tax increases, and nobody asked for a tax increase. There's not one proposal that the Senate Democratic Caucus has ever offered up in the context of this budget process that ever asked for a tax increase. So the conversation about having that is a false conversation. But because that is hanging over the majority's head, that's what we got. An environment where pressure has been put on families across the Commonwealth, and they will raise their local property taxes to deal with the cuts in basic education. Students, Mr. President, in the impact of this budget, will see a dramatic increase in their tuitions as they go to college for our state-related universities and our state-owned universities. Believe me, there will be a tuition increase for every student that's listening or paying attention. There will be a tuition increase at Penn State University, and it will be a dramatic one. If you're a student at Temple University, you'll see a tuition increase, and it'll be a dramatic one. If you're a student at the University of Pittsburgh, you'll see a tuition increase, and it will be a dramatic one. If you're a student at the 14 state-owned universities, from Westchester to IUP to Clarion to Cheney University, you'll see a dramatic increase in your tuition because the money that exists in this budget that is available to us will not be shared with those students. If you're a student at Lincoln University, rest assured there'll be a tuition increase, and it doesn't have to be. In fact, there are probably layoffs at all of those universities because the majority has chosen not to invest in the students of Pennsylvania and not to invest in the universities of Pennsylvania at an appropriate level to prevent that from occurring. But this is what they crafted without making sure that everyone was a part of the process. This is what they crafted in their private rooms, in their private conversations. This is where they crafted, whether it be at the residence, at the mansion, at the office. This is what they came up with. This is their crafting. This is their doing. If you're trying to find a job in Pennsylvania, if you're looking for economic development, if you're a small business person trying to look for some help in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, if you have a new technology program that you'd like to introduce in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, well, don't look to see if there's a friend in Pennsylvania, because this budget reflects the fact that when there was an opportunity to help you, when there was an opportunity to provide significant extra dollars to help you, this budget turns away from you. And it does that in the context with having money available to be invested. And if you're on health care, and if you need the help of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with respect to health insurance, the amazing thing that is occurring in this state budget, and the amazing thing about the process that has occurred in this state budget is really interesting. Back on February 28th, Mr. President, it was a Monday, and the adult basic program came to an end. The adult basic program had at that moment an enrollment of about 42,000 to 45,000 people who were receiving health insurance for them. for those individuals. They were receiving health insurance. These are individuals who are mostly women. They're raising families. They work in low-income jobs. They don't make enough to pay for their own private insurance and make a little bit too much to be able to participate in the state's medical assistance program. Well, on February 28th, this administration said that we can no longer continue to fund that program. That program is over. It's over. It's finished. Kaput. It's ended. We don't have the money, is what the front office said. We don't have the money to spend on that program. Amazingly enough, 3 days later, on March 3rd, Mr. President, the governor announced that, you know what? I guess we just found some new money. Because now we've got new dollars, and we can do something that, well, we'll just take advantage, and our best friends in the big businesses of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they're going to receive this year a $68 million tax cut. So we cut off insurance, health care services on February 28th because we didn't have enough money. That's what it was said. And then 3 days later, from Monday to Thursday, amazingly, $68 million appeared, and now we can provide a tax break for the big businesses of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And the problem with that is, amongst a number of things, Mr. President, is that we got nothing for that tax break. There was no commitment to provide new jobs. There was no commitment to help out with the uninsured. There was no commitment to do anything. There was no commitment to make reinvestments in the Commonwealth or start new business in the Commonwealth. And the interesting thing about it, that kind of tax break that was received, Mr. President, is a tax break that is rated one of the worst ways to stimulate the economy, to put new businesses back and create new jobs. That's what occurred. And then March 3rd, when they said there was no money, March 8th, the governor introduced his budget, and there was another $300 million in that new budget for more tax breaks for the largest businesses. But at the same time, if we say there is no money, then there is no money. If there's no money for young people to go to school, if there's no money for students to go to college, if there's no money for folks to receive health care benefits, how come there amazingly can appear money for these major businesses in the Commonwealth with no commitment from these businesses to create jobs or provide opportunity? Nothing in writing, nothing in paper, no legislation committed to, nothing. But that's what we have in this budget that we're about to vote on right now. So no commitment to provide health care services, even though we have a current year budget surplus of $700 million. We could figure out a way to restart the adult basic program. We could get that started again if there was some creativity, if there was some ingenuity, if there was a commitment, if there was a will. But apparently there is no will. But we know there is the dough. We know there is the money. We know there are the finances because the reports are coming. And again today, an additional $66 million was reported to the Commonwealth. Mr. President, this is the wrong direction for the people of the state. This is the wrong direction. This is not the way we need to be going to growing the state's economy. This is not the way we need to be going to invest in people. This is not the way that we need to be going to provide a bright future for the youth of the state, for the college students of the state, for the folks who are looking for jobs and employment opportunities for the state, for the folks who want to provide who need health care services in this state. This cuts services when the money is available. And the budget was created, again, Mr. President, by just a handful of individuals in a very partisan fashion. The Republican majority of the Senate, the Republican majority of the House, and the governor's office convened amongst themselves and crafted this document. If they had brought other folks to the table, maybe we'd had a little bit of difference. Maybe we could go in a different direction. Maybe we could be responsive to the needs of the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But that's not what happened here. So consequently, Mr. President, for all those reasons and thousands more that are in this document, and for millions of people across this state who need this state to stand up for them, who need the state to recognize the fact that there are dollars available to invest in the education of their children, that there are dollars to invest in the job creation programs to put people back to work and put people first. For the millions of people across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who need this state to step up for them when they need a little bit of help with their health care program. when they need a little bit of help with their environmental needs. Well, I haven't talked about the issue of Marcellus Shale. I'm sure one of my colleagues will talk about that. That's the other crime that exists in this budget, the fact that we let that industry off the hook one more time. How can we say to the average Pennsylvania homeowner that you're going to have to pay more taxes, and our friends in the Marcellus Shale industry, they don't have to pay a dime. They don't have to contribute anything to this process while we wait for a commission to produce its report. Well, the report is in right now for the needs of the people of the Commonwealth. The report is in that folks need help when they go to school, that they need help when they're trying to find a job, and this budget does not respond to their needs. So, Mr. President, for thousands of reasons more on this budget document, but more importantly for the millions of Pennsylvania's people who need this state to stand up for them, I urge a no vote on House Bill 1485. It's appropriate, it's the right direction, and we need to vote no and come back with another solution to respond to the needs of the reality of Pennsylvania's people. We need to be in the business of putting Pennsylvania's people first. This budget, Mr. President, puts them last.